I didn't even know you could get sued for dating someone, like actually taken to court, with lawyers and paperwork and folders with your name printed on them. If someone told me that a year ago, I would have laughed and called it some messy, Lifetime movie plot. But here I am, not laughing, not watching a movie, just stuck in this weird legal black hole because I had the bad luck of falling for someone who wasn't actually single, even though she swore she was. Her name was Kala, weird name, I know. She said her parents were into flowers or something. She had this energy about her like she already knew what she wanted from everyone before they even opened their mouth. I liked that. I met her on this app that wasn't super hookup heavy, more like for people who wanted something meaningful but weren't in a rush. Her profile was full of film photos, quotes about connection and raw honesty, all that deep feeling stuff, and it worked on me. From the start, she was super upfront about being in an open relationship, said her and her husband were polyamorous, had been for years, and had their own boundaries and agreements. She even showed me pictures of them together, smiling and on hikes and doing normal couple things. She said they dated other people independently and just checked in with each other from time to time. She made it sound so structured, like there was this whole respectful system. It was a little weird at first, I won't lie, but the more I got to know her, the less it bothered me. And honestly, I didn't think it was my place to ask too many questions about someone else's marriage. Things moved fast. We went from casual drinks to cooking dinners together in my apartment. She had a drawer. She bought me plants. She'd come over on weeknights and fall asleep on my chest like we were building something. I never asked where her husband was during all of this. It just didn't feel like a thing we needed to talk about, and I didn't want to ruin whatever this was with paranoia. But then, one day, this letter shows up in my mailbox. Actual letter. Not an email. It had legal stamps on it and everything. I thought it was some scam at first. I opened it and read the first few lines and just sat there with it in my hands for like 10 minutes. I was being sued, no joke, for alienation of affection. I didn't even know what that meant. Apparently it's this old law in a few states where you can sue the person your spouse cheated with, like the third party, me, the guy who thought everything was above board. It's not common, but it's real, and it was happening. I tried calling her. She didn't answer. Sent her messages. Nothing. Then, finally, she texted me, all in lowercase, saying she was sorry and things got out of hand and she should have told me more. That was it. I never saw her again. So now I'm sitting here in the middle of a legal situation I still barely understand. I had to get a lawyer. Not cheap. He explained the law to me, said it was basically her husband's way of punishing someone, me, for something he couldn't control. Even though they were supposedly in an open marriage, apparently they had rules. And according to him, I broke them. I didn't even know the rules. No one gave me a copy of the manual. But that didn't matter. The worst part wasn't the lawsuit, though. It was the feeling that I'd been used. Not just emotionally, but strategically. Like I was a pawn in some messy power game between two people who weren't being honest with each other or with me. I thought I was building something with her. I thought she came over because she wanted to. I thought we had inside jokes and morning coffee runs that meant something. But maybe it was all just temporary for her. Maybe I was her way of escaping, or proving a point, or making him jealous. I'll never really know. Friends told me to go public with it, post about it, call her out. But I didn't. I don't want to be that guy, airing everything out just to get sympathy or attention. It feels gross. And besides, what would I even say? Hey, here's a warning. Just because someone says they're in an open relationship doesn't mean their partner actually knows you exist. Doesn't really fit on a poster. The whole thing dragged out for months. Court appearances, phone calls, awkward conversations with my boss when I had to take time off. I kept it all quiet. Told my parents it was a civil matter, didn't go into detail. Who wants to tell their mom they're being sued for stealing someone's wife even if it's technically not true? Eventually, the case got dropped. Not because I proved anything, but because her husband stopped pursuing it. My lawyer said maybe he was trying to scare me off, or maybe he just wanted to make a point. Either way, it left a huge mess behind. I lost money. I lost trust. And now, whenever I go on dating apps, I overthink everything. If someone says they're in an open relationship, I swipe left immediately. If someone's too cool about everything, I don't believe them. I've turned into one of those people who reads the fine print and Googles names before the first date. Kala? No clue where she is now. Deleted her profiles, blocked my number, probably moved on to someone new who doesn't know anything. Sometimes I still think about her when I walk past the bakery we used to go to, or when I see people hugging at the train station like nothing bad ever happens. I wonder if she ever felt bad, or if I was just a temporary role she played really. Well, I'm not mad, just tired. Like it's one thing to get ghosted or dumped or cheated on. That stuff sucks, but it happens. This was a whole different category. Dating someone and ending up in court over it? Yeah. I met him on a Tuesday night when I was scrolling in bed way too late again. His profile caught my attention right away. He looked clean, put together, like the kind of guy who actually ironed his shirts and read the terms and conditions. His name was Marcel, and he had this confident but polite tone in his bio. Something about loving morning coffee and late-night philosophy. I don't know, it felt grown. Tired of dudes with fish photos or bios that just say 6'1" because apparently that's a whole personality now. So yeah, I matched with him. We started messaging that same night. He responded quick, never dry, didn't use emojis like a 13-year-old. It was refreshing. Said he was a lawyer, corporate stuff mostly. Busy, but flexible. I liked that he wasn't constantly available. Made him seem like he had his own life and wasn't just sitting around waiting to be wanted. We messaged for like a week straight before moving to FaceTime. And yeah, his face matched. No weird filters, no off angles. And his voice? Kinda deep but soft-spoken, calming. He talked a lot about work, how draining it was. I didn't ask for proof or anything, just kind of took it in. We didn't meet in person right away because he said his firm was dealing with some huge case and he was always traveling back and forth between cities. Honestly, I didn't question it much. He'd send pics from airports, random lobby selfies, even blurry courtroom doors. It looked legit enough. And the way he talked, dude knew legal jargon. Like I'd say something petty about a coworker and he'd turn it into a whole analysis on workplace rights. I actually started looking forward to our calls more than anything else in my day. About a month in, he told me he wanted to plan a weekend for us. Said he was finally getting a break and wanted to spend it getting to know me in person. He booked a small Airbnb in a town halfway between us, sent me the receipt and everything. I was excited but nervous. We talked every night leading up to it and everything felt good. He even helped me choose outfits. Real sweet. But the night before we were supposed to meet, he canceled. Said something came up with the case and he had to fly out last minute. I was disappointed, but he sounded genuinely stressed, like he hated bailing. So we rescheduled. Then he canceled again. This went on for a while. He'd always have some excuse. Family emergency, work issue, a flooded apartment. After the third time, I started to feel weird. Not angry, just off. Like something wasn't adding up. So I did what any normal person would do. I started digging. Not deep. Just typed his name into Google. And nothing. I mean nothing. No law, firm profile, no LinkedIn, no articles, no background at all. I thought maybe he was using a middle name or something. When I asked casually about where he went to law school, he gave me this vague story about transferring mid-degree and how most of his classmates didn't really stay in touch. Still didn't raise alarms. I just wanted it to make sense. Everything blew up the night he called me by accident. I was lying in bed half asleep when my phone lit up. It was a video call from him, but the screen was dark at first, like it was in his pocket. I answered out of habit, not even thinking. Then I heard it. A little girl's voice asking for juice. Then her calling someone Daddy. I thought maybe it was a niece or something. But then she said, "Where's Mommy?" And that's when my heart dropped. I didn't say anything. I stayed completely silent, just listening. After a few minutes, he must have realized the call was live because the screen went black and then it hung up. The next day, He texted like nothing happened. I didn't reply. I waited. 2 days later, he finally messaged me saying he had something to explain. Said he'd been going through a separation and didn't know how to tell me. Said the kid was his daughter. Said he still wanted to see me. That he needed more time to figure things out. That was the last message he ever sent. I didn't respond. I didn't block him either. I just let the messages pile up until they stopped. It wasn't even about him being married. It was the whole act, the fake life. The fact that he built this lawyer persona from scratch and kept it up for months. It made me question every single conversation. Was any of it real? The compliments, the long talks, the things he said he liked about me. I kept going back and trying to find holes in the past, but it all just made me feel sick. I went back through all the photos he sent. The airport ones, the courtroom ones. None of them had his face in them. They could have been taken by anyone. The Airbnb receipt could have been a screenshot. I even tried reverse searching a few images and found one on a travel blog. I felt so stupid for not noticing earlier, for trusting it. But that's the thing. It didn't feel fake. Not until it was. I never told anyone in real life. Not really. A few vague comments to friends like, dating apps are wild, but I never went into detail. What would I even say? That I fell for a guy who pretended to be a lawyer while raising a kid behind his wife's back and lied to me for months like, it was a side project? Sounds dramatic. Sounds like a TV show. But it wasn't. It was just this slow, boring heartbreak that made me feel small every time I thought about it. Anyway, I deleted the app. Not because I'm bitter, just because I'm tired. Tired of people trying to be what they think you want instead of just being. Tired of guessing if someone's real. And mostly, tired of wondering how many other people he's still talking to, keeping the act going like a full-time job. I met Kai on this app that wasn't even for dating, technically. More like for social discovery, whatever that means. I was just bored, not even looking for anything serious, but his profile made me stop scrolling. He looked like the kind of guy who lived in a loft with exposed brick and made pour-over coffee while listening to sad indie bands. You know the type. His bio said, child-free by choice, into intentional living and weird documentaries. And I remember liking that. He said it up front. Most guys either avoid the kid question or act like they're cool with anything when they're not. So yeah, we matched, and we started talking the same day. He was a good texter. Witty, fast replies, didn't do that annoying one-word stuff. And he was super opinionated, but not in a rude way. Just very clear on what he wanted, what he didn't. He'd go off on these rants about how society pushes people into parenthood and how he never wanted to raise kids in late-stage capitalism. Which, okay, a bit dramatic, but it was kind of refreshing, like he had a spine. I liked that. We started hanging out pretty fast. First time I met him in person, he showed up with this weird Japanese soda and a tiny book of poetry he said he found at a thrift shop. And yeah, it was pretentious as hell, but it was also kind of sweet. He was different. Didn't try to impress me with money or fake charm. Just talked about stuff that made his brain light up. I started staying over a few nights a week. His apartment was small but cozy, always smelled like sage or coffee or something herbal. He didn't have a TV, which was annoying at first, but we'd end up watching stuff on his projector or just talking for hours, sometimes sitting on the floor eating rice out of the same bowl. At some point, it stopped being casual. We never had the talk, but it just settled into something comfortable. I was into it. I thought he was too. He met my friends. He even helped one of them move. We made plans to go to a cabin for a weekend, off the grid. Felt real. And then, one random Tuesday afternoon, I got this weird message on Instagram from an account I didn't follow. It was just a photo, a kid, maybe around 10, standing in front of a school. And then another message. Do you know who this is? I didn't respond right away. I showed it to Kai that night, thinking it was spam or someone messing with me. He went completely quiet, like shut down. Then he just said, we need to talk. So we sat down on that ugly floor rug he always said was vintage, and he told me he had a son. A 10-year-old son, from some relationship back in his early 20s. Said he hadn't seen him in years. Said he didn't believe in being a parent if you couldn't do it intentionally. I just sat there, trying to connect the dots between the guy who ranted about how kids ruin your life and the guy who apparently had one he never mentioned. I asked if he paid child support, and he looked at me like I'd just spoken in another language. Said he opted out, whatever the hell. That means I didn't yell, I didn't cry. I just sat there and tried not to look at him. Everything felt weird after that. I kept remembering all the stuff he'd said about being child-free, how passionate he was about it. And now I realized it wasn't just a preference, it was him rewriting his own past. Like his kid just didn't exist anymore. Like he could just edit that part out. I told him I needed space, and he said he understood. But then, like 2 days later, he started getting weird. Sent me this long voice note about how he felt emotionally violated and how my reaction was disproportionate, like I'd done something wrong by being shocked. And then came the threat. He said, if I talked to anyone about his situation, especially mutuals or online, he'd release content I'd shared with him. He said it so casually, like it was some business deal. I didn't even know what to say. My hands were shaking, not from fear, just from how quickly someone can flip. One day they're bringing you coffee in bed. The next they're threatening to ruin your job because you found out they're a deadbeat dad. I blocked him everywhere. Reported the account. Even told a few friends to keep an eye out in case anything popped up. Nothing ever did, thankfully. But for weeks I was anxious every time I logged into anything. Not because of the photos, but because I felt like I had no clue who I'd been sharing my life with. Like, how does someone hide something that big and then make you feel like the problem? I deleted our old texts, deleted the photos. But sometimes I still think about those nights, the ones where everything felt real. Like when we sat on the fire, escaped sharing a cigarette even though neither of us really smoked. Or that time he made soup from scratch and we ate it out of chipped bowls because he said imperfections were honest. I wonder if he ever felt anything real during all that. Or if he was just performing, building another version of himself that fit the narrative he liked better. I don't really go on apps now. I mean, I might again. One day. But now I read profiles way too hard, like I'm looking for secret code. When someone says they're child-free, I just scroll past. Not because it's bad, but because I don't trust what that even means anymore. Anyway, I still live in the same place, still buy that same Japanese soda sometimes when I see it, but now it just tastes kind of bitter. Funny how small stuff like that sticks. Okay, so here's the thing. I've dated trash dudes before. Like actual bottom-of-the-bag, soggy takeout box, smells like it's been there a week type trash. So when I matched with Micah, I was in that place where you kind of expect the worst, but still try to give people a chance. His profile gave sensitive philosopher with a Spotify playlist for every mood. Bio said, pro-therapy, anti-hustle culture, emotionally available, for real. Like, he was trying. Hard. But somehow not in that gross try-hard way. He had one of those tired faces like he's seen stuff. I remember thinking, cool, he's sad, I can work with that. We met at a bookstore cafe because of course we did. He brought a book with him, and I can't even remember which one because I was too distracted by how much he looked like someone who owned incense and had probably read bell hooks once and never stopped bringing it up. First date was solid. Good banter. Good eye contact. He listened. Like really listened. I mentioned I had a complicated relationship with my mom, and he didn't flinch or make it weird. He just nodded like, yup, same. So we kept seeing each other. He was big on checking in, sent me texts like, hey, how's your heart today? And can I hold space for you? It was a little corny, yeah, but I was into it. It felt nice after so many dudes who thought intimacy was just unzipping their pants and saying, you up? He always talked about accountability, emotional labor, healthy masculinity, all the buzzwords. And he was in therapy, weekly, sometimes bi-weekly. At one point I was like, damn, maybe I finally found someone who actually gets it. We started spending more nights together. He cooked weird little meals with too much turmeric, played me ambient, music while we talked about what we wanted to unlearn. He met my friends, they loved him. One of them even said, "You finally found a man who's done the work." And I was like, yeah, maybe I did. And then, the podcast thing happened. I didn't even know he had one. He never mentioned it, ever. I found it by accident. One of my, friends sent me a TikTok clip where this guy was talking about weaponized vulnerability in modern dating and how some women fake trauma to avoid accountability. The guy's voice sounded familiar. Like weirdly familiar. I replayed it 3 times. It was him. No doubt. Same cadence, same little pretentious laugh. But he was using a different name. A fake one. Eli Knox. I searched the name and found the full podcast. It had like 40+ episodes, all anonymous, all under this weird healing from female manipulation angle. I binged like 5 in a row. I wish I didn't. He had entire segments where he talked about women he dated, vaguely, enough to pretend it was anonymous, but if you knew him, if you were one of those women, you knew. One of the stories was about a freelance writer with unresolved mom issues who used therapy speak to dodge accountability. That's me. That's literally me. Word for word. He told that story like, I was some emotionally unavailable manipulator who used my trauma to earn empathy I didn't reciprocate. I sat there with my mouth open like, this man who lit sage and asked to hold space for me, was out here telling strangers that I weaponized my own anxiety to gain control. I wanted to scream, and he had other stories too. About women who cried too easily. About feminist influencers who talk about boundaries but ghost you the second you challenge them. He never said names, but the way he described them, it was surgical, precise, like he wrote these women down in a notebook, labeled them, and dissected them for clout. The worst part, he had fans. Like real ones. Dudes in the comments talking about how his insights opened their eyes, that he was helping them understand emotional manipulation from the female perspective. Meanwhile, this same man was texting me that night telling me he missed my energy. I didn't even confront him right away. I needed a few days to let the rage cool down enough so I wouldn't just go full scorched earth. When I finally brought it up, he didn't even look surprised, just stared at me and said, "You knew I was a communicator. This is how I process." Like, excuse me? Calling your podcast a communication tool is like saying a diary is journalism. He said I was taking it too personally, that he never used my name, and that he had a right to his story. I asked him why he never told me about it. He said it was a separate space, and that he didn't want it to affect how I saw him. Bro, you affected how I saw you. After that, I dipped. Blocked him on everything, told my friends. One of them recognized another story he told, and said she was pretty sure he was talking about her too. She dated him briefly 2 years ago. He did the same thing, soft guy act, all gentle words, then ghosted her and talked about her emotional instability on Reddit. The podcast's still up. Last I checked, he dropped a new episode about the myth of the safe space, or some dumb poetic title that basically means, a woman got mad at me again. I don't even listen anymore. I'm just done. Honestly, I don't care if people think I'm overreacting. There's this whole wave of men who use therapy terms and vulnerability like a costume, just to repackage misogyny in a more digestible format. And Micah? He's like the poster boy for it. Says all the right things until you stop making him feel like a saint. Then you become manipulative, avoidant, emotionally abusive. Meanwhile, he's got a mic and a following and a whole platform to rewrite your story in his favor. So yeah, lesson learned. But not in the I grew from this way. More in the I now have a burner account to check every guy I date just in case he's secretly running a podcast about how women don't text back fast enough. So I met this hot chick on Hinge. Her name was Myra, and her profile had this quiet vibe, like someone who just moved to a new city and was still figuring out where the best coffee spots were. Her answers were all kind of soft and thoughtful, like, I'm still learning how to exist in a place that's always moving, and other weirdly poetic stuff that would normally make me roll my eyes, but for some reason, I liked it. Her location said she was new to the area, from out of the country. I figured she was just trying to get a fresh start or whatever. I wasn't looking for anything heavy. I'd just gotten out of a situationship that dragged on way too long. So when she messaged me first and asked if I wanted to grab ramen on a Sunday afternoon, I was like, sure, why not? She showed up wearing this old band tee, jeans cuffed at the bottom, and this giant coat that looked like it used to belong to someone's grandpa. She had this look in her eyes like she noticed everything, like she was always watching, but in a calm way. We sat at the bar and ordered way too much food, and she told me she was still adjusting to life here, said everything was too loud, too fast, too digital. She said in the place she grew up, things were slower. People talked to each other more. I didn't press for details. I figured she'd open up if she felt like it. Plus, I kind of liked the mystery. It was different from the usual small talk. We started seeing each other more after that. She always made it feel like we were hiding from the world, like everything outside didn't matter once the door was shut. She'd sit cross-legged on my couch and scroll through old books on my shelf like they were treasure. She'd ask me weird questions in the middle of the night like, do you think people ever really start over or do they just bury the old stuff deeper? I thought it was deep at the time. Now I realize it was probably her trying to tell me something without really telling me. After about 3 months, she moved in. Not officially, but she was over all the time. She'd do little things like cook soup from scratch or tape up tiny notes in the fridge that said, don't forget to drink water, or your leftovers are judging you. She never talked about her past though, like, ever. I asked once where she went to school and she just said, a little place you've never heard of. I thought maybe it was just trauma or something she didn't want to get into. I wasn't gonna push. Everyone has stuff. But then things started getting weird. Little things. One day, a package came for her under a different name. I asked who it was, and she just laughed and said it was an old name from a former life. I let it slide. Then another one showed up. Different name again. I started thinking maybe she was using aliases for privacy. She didn't have a real job, just did freelance stuff online, mostly editing and ghostwriting. She never let me see what she was working on, said it was all under NDAs. At one point, I offered to help her set up a real desk in the spare room, and she got kind of weird about it. Said she liked staying mobile. The real red flag came when I got a message on Facebook from someone I didn't know. It was a woman named Elena, and she said she'd been looking for Myra for over a year. Said they used to be together, and that Myra owed her a few $1,000s and completely disappeared after promising to help her with a medical bill. I didn't respond right away. I showed Myra the message and expected her to freak out or deny it. But she didn't. She just sat there quiet, and then said, that's not entirely false, but it's also not what it looks like. I pressed, finally. And that's when it all unraveled. She wasn't from another country. She was born about 30 minutes from where we lived. Same state, same city even. She changed her name a few years ago and started using different identities to avoid exes, old roommates, and apparently some people who were threatening to sue her. I asked for what? She said misunderstandings. I asked again. She said she had a habit of borrowing money she couldn't pay back. Said she was trying to reset her life. That she met me because she wanted something honest for once. Didn't yell. I didn't kick her out right away. I just sat there thinking about how I'd built this whole image of her in my head. The thoughtful girl with the soft voice who cooked late-night pancakes and asked deep questions under blankets. And now I had to adjust to the fact that she'd been lying to me the entire time. Not like a white lie, not like hiding her favorite show or something dumb, but her entire identity. I told her she had to go. Not in a big dramatic way. I just said she couldn't stay. She packed fast. Barely said anything. Left behind a pair of earrings and a copy of a Murakami book she swore she loved but probably never read. After she left, I got 2 more messages from other people. One was a guy who said he loaned her $800 for a fake vet bill. Another was someone who said she promised to invest in their startup and vanished. Both were angry. Both had receipts. I didn't respond to either. What would I say? I kept expecting her to pop back up, to message me, to explain. She never did. She just disappeared again, like she was never here in the first place. Now I check names. I ask more questions. I Google first dates. Not because I'm scared, but because I learned that some people build entire lives out of smoke, and they're good at it. Real good. And when it burns down, you're left sitting in a room that doesn't even feel like yours anymore. Hey guys, thanks for listening in. Please hit that like button if you enjoyed. We're a new channel, so please smash that subscribe button and help support us. Thanks so much. Check out this story on screen now.